The chilling online obsession that led to disappearance. What if your online connections weren't just harmless chats, but a sinister web slowly tightening around you? 23-year-old Emma Richardson thought she had made a genuine friend through an online photography forum in 2021. For 8 months, she exchanged messages with someone who shared her passion for landscape photography, someone who seemed kind, supportive, and understanding. But those daily conversations were masking something far darker. Her online friend wasn't who they claimed to be, and their interest in Emma went far beyond photography. When Emma vanished from her apartment in Seattle on March 15, 2022, leaving behind her phone, wallet, and all her belongings, investigators would discover that her disappearance was the culmination of a chilling obsession that had been meticulously planned through thousands of digital interactions. The trail they would follow through Emma's online life would reveal how easily virtual boundaries can be crossed, and how a predator can use digital intimacy to engineer a real-world tragedy. Emma Richardson had moved to Seattle in January 2021 to start a new job as a graphic designer at a tech startup. She was passionate about photography, spending her weekends hiking in the Cascade Mountains, capturing stunning landscapes that she would share on various photography websites and forums. Emma was outgoing, creative, and had a wide circle of friends both online and in person. Nothing about her suggested she was vulnerable or at risk. In July 2021, Emma joined a photography forum called Landscape Lovers, a community of amateur and professional photographers who shared tips, critiqued each other's work, and organized meetups. It was there that she first encountered a user named Mountain Watcher, who claimed to be a 35-year-old landscape photographer from Portland named Alex Morrison. Mountain Watcher's profile featured stunning photographs of Pacific Northwest scenery, and their comments on other people's work were thoughtful and encouraging. Emma and Mountain Watcher began exchanging private messages about photography techniques, favorite locations, and equipment. The conversations were friendly and focused on their shared interest. Mountain Watcher complimented Emma's eye for composition and her use of natural light. They discussed planning a photography meetup with other forum members, though none ever materialized due to scheduling conflicts. Over the following months, the conversations gradually became more personal. Mountain Watcher asked about Emma's life in Seattle, her job, her other interests. Emma, thinking she was developing a genuine friendship, shared details about her daily routine, her favorite coffee shop, the hiking trails she frequented, even photos of her apartment with its view of the city. She mentioned that she lived alone, that her family was across the country in Ohio, and that she was still building her social network in Seattle. What Emma didn't know was that Mountain Watcher was not Alex Morrison from Portland. The person behind the account was actually Derek Chen, a 38-year-old software engineer from Tacoma, Washington, just 30 miles from Seattle. The photographs on his profile weren't his. They were stolen from various photographers' websites. Derek had created the Mountain Watcher persona specifically to connect with women in the photography community. Derek had been watching Emma's posts on the forum for weeks before initiating contact. He had studied her photographs, noting the locations where they were taken, the times of day she preferred to shoot, the patterns in her posting schedule. He had looked at the metadata on her photos that revealed GPS coordinates. He had cross-referenced her username with other social media platforms and found her Instagram account, her LinkedIn profile, and her Facebook page. Through careful analysis of her digital footprint, Derek had assembled a detailed picture of Emma's life before ever sending her a single message. As their online friendship deepened, Derek's interest evolved into obsession. He wasn't content with digital interactions anymore. He began driving to Seattle on weekends, visiting the locations Emma had photographed, hoping to encounter her. He went to the coffee shop she had mentioned, the bookstore she liked, the parks where she walked. He never approached her during these visits. He simply watched from a distance, taking photos with a telephoto lens, documenting her movements. Derek created elaborate fantasies about Emma, convinced that their connection was special and meant to be something more than friendship. When Emma mentioned in a message that she had gone on a date with someone from work, Derek felt a surge of jealousy and betrayal. In his distorted thinking, Emma belonged to him, even though they had never met in person, and Emma had no idea who Derek really was. Emma's friends later told investigators that around February 2022, Emma had mentioned feeling uncomfortable with how intense Mountain Watcher's messages had become. The person was asking very specific questions about her schedule, wanting to know exactly when she would be at certain locations, pressing for more personal information. Emma had started to pull back from the conversations, responding less frequently and with less detail. This withdrawal only intensified Derek's obsession. He couldn't accept that Emma was distancing herself. He believed that if he could just meet her in person, she would understand their connection. He began planning how to make that meeting happen, studying Emma's routines more carefully, tracking her movements, waiting for the perfect opportunity. On March 15, 2022, Emma's co-workers reported her missing when she failed to show up for work and didn't respond to calls or messages. This was completely out of character for Emma, who was reliable and always communicated if something came up. Her supervisor contacted the police that afternoon. Officers went to Emma's apartment and found her door unlocked. Inside, everything appeared normal at first glance. Emma's phone was on the kitchen counter. Her wallet with her ID and credit cards was on her dresser. Her car keys were on a hook by the door. Her car was in its assigned parking spot. But Emma was gone, and there were no signs of a struggle. Detective Lisa Park was assigned to the case. As she examined Emma's apartment more carefully, she noticed small inconsistencies. Emma's laptop was missing, though its charging cable was still plugged into the wall. Her camera, which according to friends was her most prized possession, was also gone. Most of her clothes appeared to be present, but her hiking boots were missing, along with a jacket that usually hung by the door. The lack of forced entry suggested Emma had either left voluntarily or had let someone in that she knew. The missing laptop and camera suggested this might not be a random abduction. Detective Park began investigating Emma's personal life, interviewing friends, family, and co-workers, trying to understand if Emma had been planning to leave or if she had been involved in something dangerous. Emma's best friend, Sarah Chen, told Detective Park about Emma's online activities and her involvement in photography forums. She mentioned that Emma had seemed worried about someone online who had been messaging her too frequently. Sarah couldn't remember the specific details, but she knew Emma had considered leaving the forum because of it. This led Detective Park to request access to Emma's online accounts. With cooperation from Emma's family and legal authorization, investigators obtained access to her email, social media accounts, and forum memberships. What they discovered in her message history with Mountain Watcher was deeply disturbing. The messages spanned 8 months and numbered in the thousands. Early conversations were innocent, focused on photography. But as Detective Park read chronologically through the exchanges, she watched the dynamic shift. Mountain Watcher's questions became increasingly personal and specific. The user wanted to know Emma's exact schedule, what she did every day, where she would be at specific times. More concerning were messages Emma hadn't responded to. In the weeks before her disappearance, Mountain Watcher had sent dozens of messages that Emma had ignored. The tone of these messages became increasingly desperate and concerning. "Why are you ignoring me? I thought we had a real connection. You can't just cut me off like this. I need to see you. I know where you like to go. Maybe I'll surprise you sometime." Detective Park immediately recognized these as stalking behaviors. She contacted the forum administrators to get information about the Mountain Watcher account. The administrators provided the email address used to register the account and IP address logs showing where the user had accessed the forum. The email address led to a fake account, but the IP addresses were revealing. They showed that Mountain Watcher had accessed the forum from multiple locations in Tacoma and Seattle. Some of the Seattle IP addresses were traced to coffee shops and public spaces that Emma had mentioned frequenting in her messages. This suggested that Mountain Watcher had physically been to these locations, possibly following Emma. A digital forensics team analyzed Emma's online presence more thoroughly. They discovered that someone had been systematically accessing her social media profiles, viewing her photos, and tracking her posts. The pattern of views and interactions suggested an obsessive level of monitoring. They also found that someone had attempted to access Emma's email account from an unauthorized location in the weeks before her disappearance, though the security features had blocked the attempts. Detective Park worked with cybercrime specialists to try to identify Mountain Watcher. The photographs on the profile were traced back to their original sources, confirming they had been stolen from various photographers. The persona was completely fabricated, but whoever was behind it had made mistakes that left digital traces. One critical lead came from analyzing the metadata on some images that Mountain Watcher had sent to Emma, claiming they were recent photographs. The metadata revealed that one photo had been taken with a specific camera model and contained GPS coordinates that placed it in Tacoma, not Portland where Mountain Watcher claimed to live. This confirmed the person was lying about their location. Investigators obtained a warrant to request user data from the forum and from various internet service providers associated with the IP addresses. This led them to identify Derek Chan as the likely person behind the Mountain Watcher account. Derek lived in Tacoma, worked in software engineering, which gave him the technical skills to create a fake online identity, and had no alibi for the time of Emma's disappearance. Police obtained a warrant to search Derek's home and computers. What they found was the stuff of nightmares. Derek's apartment was filled with printed photographs of Emma, some taken from her social media, others clearly taken by Derek himself without her knowledge. He had photos of Emma at coffee shops, in parks, walking to her car, entering her apartment building. The walls of his bedroom were covered with these images. Derek's computers contained thousands more photos and detailed documents where he had recorded Emma's daily routines, the routes she took, the time she was typically at various locations. He had created a comprehensive surveillance log spanning months. Even more disturbing, investigators found searches on Derek's computer about abduction techniques, how to disable cell phones, remote locations in the Cascade Mountains, and how long someone could survive in wilderness conditions. Derek was arrested at his workplace. During the initial interview, he remained calm, claiming he had no idea who Emma Richardson was. But when presented with evidence from his computers, his composure cracked. He admitted to creating the Mountain Watcher profile and to messaging Emma, but insisted he had never met her in person and had nothing to do with her disappearance. However, Derek's phone records told a different story. Cell tower data placed his phone in the vicinity of Emma's apartment building on the morning of March 15th, the day she disappeared. His phone then traveled east toward the Cascade Mountains, an area with sparse cell coverage, before returning to Tacoma that evening. Investigators also found that Derek had researched Emma's apartment building extensively. He knew the security system was outdated, knew there were blind spots in the camera coverage, and knew that the door to the parking garage could be accessed through a side entrance that wasn't monitored. He had spent weeks planning how to get to Emma without being detected. A search and rescue operation was launched in the Cascade Mountain areas that Derek's phone had traveled through. Teams searched hiking trails, remote access roads, and wilderness areas. The search was complicated by the vast territory and difficult terrain. After 2 weeks of intensive searching, they found Emma's camera abandoned on a trail about 80 miles east of Seattle. The camera's memory card was missing. Derek maintained his innocence despite mounting evidence. But forensic analysis of his vehicle revealed Emma's DNA in the trunk, along with fibers matching clothing she had been wearing in recent photos. Soil samples from his car's tires matched soil composition from the area where her camera was found. Faced with this evidence, Derek's attorney negotiated a plea agreement. In exchange for revealing what had happened to Emma, Derek would plead guilty to second-degree murder and receive a sentence of 40 years to life, rather than facing a first-degree murder charge that could result in life without parole. Derek's confession was chilling in its calculated nature. He admitted that he had become obsessed with Emma through their online interactions. When she began pulling away, he couldn't accept it. He had been following her for months, learning her routines, planning how to approach her. On the morning of March 15th, he had waited in the parking garage of her building, knowing she usually went for a hike on her days off. When Emma came down to her car carrying her camera and wearing her hiking gear, Derek had approached her, claiming to be Alex Morrison, the person she had been messaging online. He had shown her photos on his phone that she had seen on the Mountain Watcher profile, trying to convince her he was real. Emma, according to Derek, had been confused and frightened, trying to get away from him. Derek claimed that he had only wanted to talk to her, to make her understand their connection. But when Emma tried to run, he panicked and grabbed her, forcing her into his vehicle. He drove her to a remote area in the mountains, a location he had scouted previously. There, Emma had tried to escape, and in the struggle, Derek had killed her. Derek led investigators to a location deep in the Cascade National Forest where he had buried Emma's body. Recovery teams found Emma's remains in a shallow grave, confirming Derek's confession. The discovery brought a measure of closure to Emma's family, though nothing could heal the wound of their loss. The case went to trial despite the confession, as Emma's family wanted all the facts presented publicly. The trial revealed the full extent of Derek's stalking and obsession. Prosecutors presented the thousands of messages, the surveillance photos, the detailed logs Derek had kept of Emma's movements. Digital forensics experts testified about how Derek had used his technical skills to track Emma across multiple platforms and to create an elaborate false identity. Psychologists testified about Derek's delusional thinking, his belief that his online interactions with Emma constituted a real relationship, and his inability to accept boundaries or rejection. They explained how online interactions can enable and intensify obsessive behavior, allowing stalkers to feel connected to their victims without the reality checks that would occur in face-to-face interactions. Derek was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. The judge, in pronouncing sentence, noted that Derek had weaponized technology and online anonymity to stalk, deceive, and ultimately murder an innocent young woman whose only mistake had been being friendly to someone online. Emma's family established the Emma Richardson Foundation, which works to educate people about online safety, the warning signs of stalking behavior, and the dangers of oversharing personal information on the internet. The foundation also advocates for stronger laws around cyberstalking and for social media platforms and online forums to implement better safety features and monitoring. The photography forum where Emma and Derek had connected implemented new policies requiring identity verification for users and providing prominent warnings about sharing personal information. Many other online communities followed suit, recognizing that their platforms could be used by predators to identify and target victims. The case has been studied extensively by law enforcement and cybersecurity experts as an example of how digital stalking can escalate to physical violence. Emma's digital footprint, which she had created innocently to share her art and connect with like-minded people, had been weaponized by someone with malicious intent to track her movements and plan her abduction. Detective Park, who led the investigation, now trains other officers on investigating cases involving online stalking and digital evidence. Emma's case taught us that we need to take online threats seriously, Park explains. When someone is showing obsessive behavior online, sending excessive messages, asking intrusive questions, that's not just annoying or creepy. It can be a precursor to real-world violence. We need to investigate these behaviors before they escalate. The case also highlighted gaps in how social media platforms and online forums respond to reports of stalking or harassment. Emma had considered reporting Mountain Watcher's behavior to forum moderators but had ultimately decided against it, thinking she could just stop. responding, and the person would lose interest. By the time she recognized the danger, it was too late. Sarah Chen, Emma's best friend, has become an advocate for online safety education. Emma was smart, cautious, and aware, Sarah says through tears. But she didn't realize how much information she was revealing through casual conversations. She didn't know that someone could piece together her entire life from the small details she shared. We all do this. We post about where we are, what we're doing, who we're with. We don't think about how that information can be used by someone with bad intentions. Emma's parents, devastated by their daughter's death, have spoken publicly about their grief and their mission to prevent similar tragedies. Emma was building a life in Seattle, her mother said at a vigil held in Emma's memory. She was following her dreams, making friends, creating beautiful art. And someone took all of that away because he created a fantasy in his head and couldn't handle the reality that Emma wasn't interested. Online interactions feel safe because there's distance, because you can't see the other person. But that distance is an illusion. The people on the other side of the screen are real, and some of them are dangerous. The digital evidence in Emma's case filled terabytes of storage. Messages, photos, logs, metadata, location data, search histories. Every piece told part of the story of how an online friendship morphed into a deadly obsession. The evidence showed how Derek had carefully crafted his false identity, how he had gradually extracted personal information from Emma, how he had used that information to track her in the real world, and how he had planned her abduction with meticulous detail. Perhaps most chilling was evidence that Emma wasn't Derek's first target. Investigators found that he had created similar fake profiles to interact with other women in online communities. He had engaged in similar patterns of behavior with at least 4 other women, though in those cases, he had not escalated to physical stalking or violence. Detectives contacted these women to inform them of Derek's obsession and provide resources for protection and support. The case raised important questions about responsibility and prevention. Could the photography forum have detected Derek's suspicious behavior earlier? Should there be requirements for identity verification on platforms where people share personal information? How can people protect themselves while still enjoying the benefits of online communities? These questions continue to be debated by privacy advocates, tech companies, and law enforcement. Emma Richardson's story is a tragedy that never should have happened. A young woman with talent, dreams, and her whole life ahead of her was murdered by someone who confused online conversations with real intimacy, who believed that his digital interactions with Emma gave him some claim on her, who couldn't accept that Emma had the right to end their online friendship. The online obsession that led to Emma's disappearance serves as a stark reminder that the virtual world and the real world are not separate. Digital interactions have real-world consequences. The person on the other side of the screen is real. The information we share online can be used in ways we never intended. And sometimes, what begins as a seemingly harmless online friendship can hide something far more sinister. Emma's digital footprint, once a celebration of her artistic vision and her love of nature, became the roadmap of her tragedy. But her story has also become a call to action, a reminder to be cautious about what we share online, to trust our instincts when online interactions feel uncomfortable, and to take seriously the warning signs of obsessive behavior before it escalates into violence. What do you think? How much of your personal life do you share online, and with whom? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that reveal the hidden dangers lurking in our increasingly digital world.